Hi, everybody, and welcome to So What Happens Next. I'm your host, Amber.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we're going to take another dive into a Japanese psychological animated film called Perfect Blue. Thomas?
I'm doing good, Amber. How's it feel to be back in the hot seat again?
It's a little unnerving. This is my second time doing this, and I guess it gets easier with each time that I do it, but yeah. But I still have to work out what I need to say. But anyways, hope you guys are doing well throughout this quarantine stay-at-home order. So again, for this episode and for every episode that we do, we have 5 things written on the board. The first one is that the film was directed by the same person who did Paprika.
Cool. I'm excited. I liked Paprika. It was fun. Like, it was a really good
Paprika
movie.
Was a real trip.
It was a trip beyond a trip. I mean, check out our episode on Paprika that we did, a little while ago, but it's our 20th episode. I think is Paprika. It's such a good version of Inception.
Oh, well, wait till you hear about this film.
Oh shit, okay.
It definitely influenced a more famous movie in America. Can you guess what it is?
No, I don't want to guess what it is because I'm not sure. I don't want to ruin this one for me, but
oh, that's true.
If I'm going to take
Let's
a guess,
wait until the end.
Okay, because I don't know. I'm looking at the 5 things on the board right now, and I'm not sure if I know what it would be anyway.
Okay. But it's really interesting because it seems like his films seem to have an influence on American films.
We're sensing a theme from Japan. Go see our episode about Seven Samurai. But what are the other 4 things left on the board for us?
So the second one is that the film is about a pop idol who retires from music to pursue an acting career.
Okay.
And then the third one is she becomes a victim of stalking. And fourth is perception leads to false reality.
Okay.
And 5 is perfect blue equals happiness? ?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what can
from these 5 things that I've listed, what do you think this movie is about?
Well, at first it's like, oh, pop idol retires from music to be an actor.
Which is not uncommon.
No, plenty of people do it. And like Will Smith kind of did that, right?
Yeah,
like,
I'm looking at you, Miley Cyrus.
I mean, I think judging just from what you have on the board, like, we're going to get a pop idol who obviously gets a stalker, and I think it's going to be dealing with that stalker is the crux of the movie, and I'm kind of wondering whose perception is going to be the false reality. Like, because my gut instinct is like the stalker is one of these people who thinks like, oh, because I loved her music and I felt like she was singing to me because I felt more related to it than anybody else, that it's like she's my best friend, and you wind up this logic train that equals she loves me or something like that, right? When in reality she has no idea who the fuck you are. But at the same time, I mean, just because it's prefaced with the same director as Paprika, I could also see her kind of spiraling out and like believing that, because like clearly like she goes from pop idol to acting, and I would imagine most people believe like, oh, at first this is an upgrade in my career, and like maybe perceiving the world as like all these things that I'm doing are really hard work, and then in reality they're actually just really shitty, and they're not like you might have actually even been better off as a pop star instead. Then again, I've heard that being a pop idol out in Korea and Japan is pretty brutal, so I'm not really sure if it's really that much better. And then perfect blue equaling happiness with a question mark. That actually makes me wonder, so it kind of, following the color scheme, it's similar to the concept of A Clockwork Orange. Is, if I recall, when I attempted to read that book many years ago, the term A Clockwork Orange is like a perfect orange, like the color, I guess. It's like to be something, to name something as clockwork is like it's working perfectly. It's perfectly in time. It's rotating. So like perfect blue, maybe that's like the point. It's like a perfect blue is like happiness because it's perfect or whatever. Or it could mean blue like I'm feeling blue and it's nothing more than irony. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm so perfectly sad that it's joyful. Who knows? But yeah, I definitely think this is also going to be a lot more mentally thrilling.
So another thing I could have added to the list, I guess, is the idea of kind of like in Paprika where you have two identities. And so you have this identity, I don't want to say issue, but like, crisis.
So like between the actor, actress, and their
so like the
life?
female protagonist, I guess, of this film.
Okay.
It's very similar to the one in Paprika, despite like having different occupations or whatever, but just that she's battling kind of with herself. And you get to visually see that.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm banking on this being very, like, really pushing animation for its time to what we can get out of it. Because Paprika, I mean, you said this comes out in 1997, 96?
Yep, 97.
So almost 10 years later, we get Paprika. And I mean, that movie's doing crazy stuff using animation. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie is at the very least like a slightly toned down version of that. But it was so stylistic in Paprika that I'm anticipating seeing some form of that in this.
Yeah, and maybe not so like blown out, kind of like Paprika was, because you had all these like colors and just vibrant like images in Paprika.
No, I guess
what are you laughing about?
I'm laughing because I think I know what movie you're talking about it influenced, but I'm gonna save it until after we watch it because I want to keep it to myself to know if I'm right, and I don't want it to think of anything. But if you guys at home are thinking the same movie as me, I know why you watched that movie.
So now we're going to watch the trailer, which will be just a second for you and a few minutes for us, and then we'll come back and share our final thoughts on it. So, what do you think, Thomas?
It looks a lot more intense. Like, it looks darker than Paprika was.
It is much darker than Paprika.
Like, I can see this movie being...
Like, when they say disturbing. A suspense and thriller, like, it
no,
is
for
suspense
sure.
and a thriller.
It also, I gotta say, like, ever since, I think, Neon Genesis Evangelion, like, is it just that every anime character lives in the same fucking apartment building? I mean, everybody...
That's
it's
true.
that subway tile wall with the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, like, I think it's in Digimon and Evangelion and, like, every... anime that takes place at some point in the Tokyo metropolitan area, like they're in that building. Or are all the buildings in Japan are all the apartment buildings in 90s
I know.
Japan?
I think of like One Punch Man, and he lives in the same kind of complex.
Like they'll have that kind of similar look, right? So if we have any listeners in Japan or who have been to Japan frequently, enough to maybe shed some light on that, let us know, because I'm like, is it just so ubiquitous that like everyone we can relate to that, as a Japanese viewer that looks like my house, and I'm like, okay. But yeah, I think this movie is definitely interesting. I mean, it almost, like, I know you have like the stalker in there and he's definitely there, he's creepy as shit, but like it almost seems like that's like a B plot here. I'm kind of curious if that's going to wind up being like a B plot, and our main plot line is just her dealing with what looks like fame, or maybe even, I kind of might want to like change my thoughts. Is she coming to terms with not being a part of Cham? Is it the name of her musical group?
Yeah, Cham. Not being like a pop star, basically,
right.
Which is who we continue to see throughout the trailer. It's
right.
just like a Paprika-like girl that's
right.
just running around.
No, and it's interesting because I kind of look at it and I'm like, oh, I thought it was going to be the difference between like fame, who you are, if I'm an actor, who I am on a press circuit versus who I am when I go back to my hotel room.
Yeah.
But this looks like it's almost like you're having trouble letting go of your previous job and moving into the other one because it was such a big part of.
Yeah,
clearly it's a very big
basically
part of her
playing
life.
this
Yeah.
person because music and acting kind of go together, right? Like in music, you're playing this. It's not really yourself. Like it's a little bit of yourself.
Well, you're putting on a show.
Yeah.
When you're on stage,
but
and
acting, like it's
yeah.
entirely, you're playing someone else, and maybe she had different thoughts about that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious how it's gonna, because it looks kind of like it's her coming to terms with like, I'm not doing that anymore, or how do I not be that person anymore?
Yeah. And I haven't seen this film in a while, but I wonder if the term actress is different because there was that one scene where she was kind of looked like she was undressing, and I'm like, oof. I hope it's...
people undress in movies.
That's true.
I don't know. Maybe it's that kind of
yeah.
scene. I don't know.
But just remembering that was like, oh yeah, this isn't like good.
Oh, okay. Well, who knows? Maybe it is what I thought, and it's that whole like, oh, I'm an actress now, but it's like,
yeah, you're an actress,
not like
but you have to do these things
right.
that, yeah.
But you're not like, in big Hollywood blockbuster movies or something like that. You are just kind of in this, perhaps even skeezy, like, B-movie.
And that's the word, like, that a lot of people use to, like, describe this.
Right. Well, cool. I'm interested. Like, I mean, this looks like it's going to be definitely an emotional romp.
So it'll be about an hour and 21 minutes for us and a few seconds for you as we go and watch Perfect Blue. And we're back.
Hi.
Hey, everyone. Well, that was...
It was Black Swan.
Yes, you figured it out, Thomas.
Yeah. It was Black Swan without that scene. Not to spoil Black Swan for anybody. Yeah, it was cool. Like, that was an interesting movie, Amber.
So with that being said, let's just dive into the plot of the movie.
Totally.
So the movie starts out with Power Rangers.
Right? Like, Perfect Blue Ranger much. I mean, this was like, it's like a stage performance of Power Rangers?
Yeah, and they're like dancing and singing.
Yeah.
And there's only 3 of them. So you've got the red...
Yeah, it's like a handful.
Yellow and pink, I think.
I vaguely remember. It's like one-off bit, and like people are complaining about how
yeah,
it's not
but
as good as
obviously
the
people
show.
don't like Power Rangers. They're just, shitting on Power Rangers.
Well, they're just like, I remember people were like, oh, the show's so much better. Like, this sucks. And I'm like, yeah, you're watching it like in person. The show has special effects and shit. Like, what do you expect? Them to actually like whip a giant robot out of their ass? Like, how the hell are you doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's before it's before the pop show with our main character in it, right?
Yes. So there's a pop duo that's about to come on after Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And before that, we have like these group of guys who are just kind of like, they're a little bit creepy, but they're like, oh yeah, like, they're basically talking about these girls as if they know them. And like they've done a whole lot of research on them too. And so they're kind of hinting at, the main girl of the trio, like she's going to be like leaving or something like that. And you also have this like really creepo guy that's just kind of like hanging out.
Creepy looking, creepy acting. This dude is a fucking weirdo and a half. Oh my God.
Like his face is just like the way they like drew him was... I was just like, oh my gosh,
like
it's not
Gollum
even like a regular person. It's just, his eyes are not, aligned. It's, yeah.
He looks like if Gollum and the dude from the Goonies had a baby and that baby got hit by a truck. Like, that's what, this guy looks really fucking weird.
Yeah.
And I did not like it. And it's just straight up clear, like, he is the creepy stalker guy.
Yeah, right then and there, you're like, oh, okay, that's like the villain of the film or whatever. But anyways, finally, Sham does come on, and they're performing and everything. And then it gets to the last song, and that's where that main girl, whose name is Mimi, she makes her announcement saying that, oh, I've decided to leave the group and I'm going to, pursue an acting career. And while she's making this announcement, there's these guys that are kind of off in the corner, and they're causing a ruckus.
Yeah.
And that's where you also see the creepy guy, he's like, doesn't really say anything, but he just like starts like, or trying to beat up these guys who obviously there's 5 of them against 1, I think. And they like beat the shit out of him. But she tells them to stop, and she makes eye contact with that guy. And he just, like, his smile, I was like, oh, that gives me like...
all of it. Well, that's the thing that I don't get on a broad sense. And maybe this is just me, it's a cultural difference, but like, there was a lot, like, I guess like pop stars in the States, right? Outwardly, in the United States, there's so much more like Miley Cyrus is, or better yet, like Taylor Swift's main demographic is like young girls, right? Yes. And you would think that's the main demographic for this group in the movie
but
Champ.
It's all guys. Not. I did not see any girls.
And that's what I don't get. I'm like, is this a Japan thing? Like, and then also like, what's the appealing factor here? Like, just out of straight curiosity.
Yeah.
Is it like a weird sex thing? Is it just like not afraid to like the style of music you like? Okay, cool. Like, it just seemed really weird. Like,
it did,
because it also wasn't
like they're not popular or anything like that by any means. Like, they're popular within their demographic, which is all these like, older guys. But compared to like everyone else, I'm just like, yeah, they're not anything special. Like, and they don't sing very well.
Yeah. Like, they're not amazing. Like, and I guess that was the weird thing, was like, their demographic for like an audience was just a bunch of dudes, but it wasn't like they were all creeping on them, It wasn't like, ooh, yeah, she's hot.
And even then, they were kind of just like, the place that they're at right now, that they're holding this concert or whatever, it's not that great. Like, the venue's not even that great, and they're kind of just like, it was better when they were doing this. They've kind of gone downhill from there.
Right.
So you're kind of getting this idea that this band is kind of like, which is why she is probably making her transition into an acting career. It's kind of going downhill, like, for the group. So she's like, okay, maybe it's time for me to like dip out. And
you kind of see that in like her apartment, right? Like, it's not like, when you think pop star, you think like MTV Cribs, and then when you get shown her apartment, it's just like a crappy little like borderline studio apartment.
And that's where you kind of dive into like who she is as a person, and she's very like almost like ditzy, I want to say.
Yo, she's totally... I get this movie's in like, what, 1997, I think is what we said?
Yeah.
I get that, but the fact that like she has to have like her manager, handler, woman, like teach her how to operate a computer in the way that she does is just really weird to me. It's just like, what's the internet? And I'm like, you gotta know what the internet is, right? Like, you gotta know, like, you could do this. And like, she finds that website.
Yeah, but before that, we also get to see how she's doing with her acting career.
Oh, yeah.
Which I feel like she was definitely like kind of forced into it, because they keep asking her like, what does like Mimi want? And the manager, or the producer, so to speak, he's like, oh, like this will be a good opportunity for her. And her friend, I guess, like the other manager, or I guess it's the producer, right? The guy is the producer.
That's where I was getting a little confused, because it came off like...
Or they have 2 managers. I really didn't know. 2 managers,
or like you could argue that she's maybe the handler. Like, you have like a handler of these
Oh, she's the
groups.
Assistant. Okay.
Yeah, and then you have the manager, who is that kind of scuzzy guy. Like,
yeah, but he's just like, yeah, this will be great. Everything will be great. And the assistant's like, but what does Mimi want? And, Mimi's just like, you've already put too much effort into like getting me these roles in these like TV shows and stuff. I'll just do it, like, because. And we cut to the set that she's on, where
it's like Law and Order.
Yeah, it's a Law and Order, basically, with like a serial killer, and they're trying to figure out who it is. But she has one line.
And she's crazy about it. She's like paranoid as hell about it. She's like, oh my God.
Yeah, and she's freaking out about it. And she's like, I got it. Like, she keeps repeating it over and over again. I'm just like, it's just one line.
And it's something along the lines of like, who are you, or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not anything like in depth. It's just like, who are you? And
yeah. And even the assistant is kind of just like talking to the other guy, and she's like, you know, it's just like one line. Can we get her like something a little bit more? Like, this is...
Right, like we want her to kind of have a debut here.
Yeah.
What are you doing? And that's where you get the letter bomb.
Yeah, that is where you get the letter bomb.
Which is taken way too casually. Like,
I know, because that guy does actually get injured by it.
It blows up in his fucking face.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, the next one will be real. And I'm just like, wait a minute. But then don't they say like, don't call the cops, or like, we're not going to call the police or some shit like that? What the hell?
I know.
Why? It's not like it would hinder production, right? Like, oh, somebody sent us a letter bomb. Like, please figure this out.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, after that, this is where she gets the computer.
Oh, okay.
And, oh, that was a painful ass scene.
It hurt because it wasn't even like, oh, it's 2020. Like, figure out a word, computer, idiot. It was like, I don't know. I remember being a child in like 97 and understanding at least conceptually what these things were. Like, I knew what the internet was, even if I didn't know all about it. I knew how to like open up a browser and type into the search bar, you know, something. But the way that she talks to her, it's like talking to a ball of hot air. She's just like not present. She's like, oh my God, that's weird. And that's where she finds the creepy website, right?
Yeah, and the assistant's like, you need to pay attention. Kind of like, you know, a mom talks to her daughter or like a kid.
Right.
It's just like, okay, pay attention. Like, this is how you like open the window.
Yeah, it's like you click this to open the window,
Yeah.
and then you click this bar and type it in with the keyboard. And it's like, wait, what do I click with? It's like with the mouse. It's called a mouse. And it's like, stop it.
Yeah. But anyways, so the assistant shows her like how to get to that website that was written in the letter, right? Mimi's room.
Yeah, it's like somebody gave her a letter or something, and it says like, I run Mimi's room.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so she like looks it up.
Yeah, and it's like an online diary. And at first it's kind of like, you know, cutesy or whatever.
Well,
but
it's
then...
creepy as shit from the beginning. I'm sorry. No, this is terrifying because it's not. It's a website that's her diary.
Like, yeah, but to her it's like cutesy because she.
But she didn't write it.
Who really? Huh?
That's the problem. Is it's supposed to be her saying, this is how my day was, this is how I feel. It's like a blog for her. But she didn't write it.
No, exactly.
And that's fucking creepy.
I know.
Like, she goes, oh, this is cute. And in my mind, I'm like, motherfucker, if I went online and found a blog that was using my name and my
and
voice
had
to
specific
say shit,
details too.
It had terrifying details. Like, today I went to the store and I did this, and I didn't do this because
and
I
it
like
shows her going to the store,
shit.
picking out a specific type of milk,
right?
And the reason as to why she picked out that specific type of milk,
it's horrifying.
Yes, it is.
And she does not get horrified by it fast enough. Like, it's fucking terrifying. And I don't know, I feel like even in 1997, if you saw that, you would be like, hold up a minute, I didn't write that. Why is this here? Why is this person pretending to be me? This is fucking creepy.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, that for a split second took me out of this movie. Because I'm like, I understand being ditzy, but that's a little too much. Like, that's a little fucking weird.
Yeah.
That's my rant on the website.
But anyway, she has her little moment where she's like, oh, I feel like I'm being watched. Mm-hmm. And she looks through the window, but doesn't see anything. And it cuts to the next scene to where her assistant and manager, they're struggling with, trying to get her more roles, like acting roles. And they ask her to come to their like headquarters. Yeah. And this is where we kind of get a glimpse into the other two. We don't really know that much about them, but we know that they're not really close. Like, because she's coming in and, she says hi and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of like what we're doing right now. They're recording on a podcast.
Yeah, they're doing like a radio type thing.
Yeah, they're doing like a radio thing. And it seems like they're doing a lot better without her. Right? And I'm kind of just like, were you that much of a...
Well, is this the scene where one of the managers does say, like, or is it like the next time we do this whole bit where it's like, they go, oh yeah, they just like hit like the Billboard Top 100
Yeah, and that's what they're talking about on the radio.
And it's like, oh, like, they are doing a lot better without you. Like, and I think this is where I think that this movie does a good job, especially with how it ultimately ends up, because she's like, during all of this, she's kind of like, Mimi's sort of losing her mind on this whole, like, I'm supposed to be a pop star. Why am I doing this movie thing? And she keeps like tripping balls and seeing a pop star version of herself and shit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it is doing a very, very heavy-handed version of like this sense of regret where you're like, oh man, if only I didn't quit, I would be sitting in there too. I would be sharing in this success with them and all that other stuff. When in reality, I wouldn't be surprised if like they gained a little bit of popularity because she became an actress, you know, like she changed positions, they made a thing out of it, and more attention got put on them as a whole. But yeah, they're kind of, you know, they're successful, and this is where they convince her to do that really like scene in that show, right?
I know. Like, oh, we're gonna do a rape scene.
Yeah. And like the handler is like, fuck no, like this will...
Yeah, she's like crying, like the assistant, you know, because Mimi's like, I'll agree, you know, I agree to it.
Right.
I need to do this in order to get myself out there because, you know, nobody knows who she is. But she's trying to be a reoccurrent character on the show. In order to do that, you have to do, like, they're like, oh, you know, do this risky, like, scene or whatever.
Yeah, because they were like, oh, let's make this, like, do this scene. It's going to be intense. And I can kind of understand where she's coming from with it. Because, like, with something like this, I feel like the issue for, like, the handler woman was, like, you're going to be raped. They're going to show you, like, naked on TV. But for her, it's like, I need to show my range as an actor. Yeah. And, like, do this arguably emotionally intense scene to sort of prove that I can do it. Not just be, you know, sort of a cameo appearance on TV. And like in that, it made sense to me, especially when they do shoot the scene, because like it is like, I don't know, I kind of like, I don't want to say like, oh, I really liked that scene when they're filming the rape scene. Like I was just sort of, it was like really well done because they're like, I feel like it kind of captured, I mean, I'm not like a producer, I've never like been on a set, but it felt like this is how you would shoot something like that.
Yeah.
And they don't just do it.
And it wasn't like it was unsafe or anything like that.
No, because even the guy's like, hey, I'm really sorry about this. And she's like, it's okay. Like, we're fine. And they film it, and it was like emotionally intense for everybody because they have to do it multiple times like you would in a movie or a show. But like, they do it. It was so cool how they were like, they're doing it, and you can feel like while you're watching it, it's intense, it's intense, it's intense. And then they yell cut, and everybody just kind of stops. And they're like, was that good? And they're like, yeah, we'll do it again. It's like, okay, that's fine, reset. And like, they just go back to it. And the only person that seemed to have like a big, huge problem was the handler woman.
Yeah.
Like even Mimi was like, okay, like, was that fine?
Yeah. And even afterwards, like the producer felt so bad. He was just like, I'll just treat you to dinner or something like that. And she's kind of unfazed by that. Even though like during that, it seemed like she was blurring like reality. Like
she started tripping a little bit in there.
Yeah. And maybe that was just to show like how she was kind of like, it was kind of like an exhilarating moment to where she was like, well, like almost an out of body experience. Like you see it happening to you, but like, you know.
And isn't that where you kind of start seeing and like the show is mirroring, it's like leading you to believe like what's happening in reality, right? Like, because the show they're filming is like this, it's sort of like a Law and Order type deal, but like they're trying to catch this killer and this person with split personalities denying it, who's Mimi's character in the show, and it's like she's tripping while she's in the show. And it was kind of a cool, like, now that I'm thinking about it late after the fact, it was kind of cool how they're like, we're gonna use the show to like better portray her falling into this, but at the same time the show's almost like helping her come to terms with it. Like it was kind of cool how like you like Paprika was, you could never really tell when the show was being filmed until
because she would say her real name
Right, because she's tripping out.
Yeah, and she's tripping. But anyway, she comes home after the rape scene and finds that her fish are dead. And she also checks on the website, and it's becoming more aggressive. Like, the person who's behind that is like kind of starting to say like really mean things.
Yeah, because they start talking about like how like, oh, that's not me, and
they made me do it, and I begged my producer, not to, even though she didn't. Right. She said she was okay with it, and she's kind of like, I never said that, and like,
yeah, and that's where the screenwriter gets killed, right?
Yeah.
Because like then it starts, this movie becomes like this weird murder mystery where like people start getting killed.
Yeah, and they're being killed like one by one, and it's really crazy.
And like this movie could have easily taken like a really cool like thriller kind of like crime thriller aspect where like these people are getting killed because like the screenwriter gets killed after he writes like the rape scene and everything like that, and then I think he like mentions some other thing later or something, I don't remember, but yeah, and then she does like a nude photo shoot, which is a weird cut to do, but that's what happens. And of course it gets posted in all the magazines, and that creeper guy, he like tries to take all, which I was like, that is so like stupid. We tried to buy all the magazines.
Yeah, so that nobody can see it, and it's just like, sorry, you can't like.
Yeah, it's fucking
like it
weird.
Is everywhere, probably around, at least in the country. So you're not going to be able to stop that. Yeah,
it's uncomfortable. Like everything the creepy guy does is uncomfortable. And I mean, it's supposed to be, and it does it really well, but it's just like, because it's also like he's not creeping in such a way where you think he's gonna like sexually abuse her or something. It's like, it does a very good job not making you feel that. It does a really good job making you understand like this dude is freakishly obsessed with her as like a pop idol. And you get
that like when you see his lair or like his room and he's talking and it's her voice, and I was like, that is as he's typing, and all his
posters are talking to him and shit too, like it's her talking to him. And
then she's like, that's not me, you have to kill this
oh my god, that was so fucking creepy. That was so fucking creepy.
And she's like, thank you so much. And she just like hugs him, and just all around the walls is just like pictures of her.
Ugh. And the worst part is there's probably people like that. But yeah, because then they hatch this plan. He's like, I'm going to kill her because
she's not the real Mimi.
Right. And that was such a wild, like what ultimately happened. We're getting close to it. But when you figure out the twist of this movie, it's wild because it's just the way it's planned out and played out is crazy. Like you don't really see it coming until it's there, and you're like, oh shit, that makes a lot of sense. Like, but yeah, because he's like, okay, I'm gonna kill her then. Like I have to kill her because she's a liar. And you see him emailing somebody who's like, I'm the real one. Like we need to kill her or something. And we need to get rid of her because she's a liar. She's fake or something like that. And at the same time, like Mimi's over here just tripping out, losing her grip on reality. She is going nuts. And I think she peaks when the stalker starts like watching her on set or something like that.
Yeah, she keeps seeing him on set, and it causes her to fuck up her lines.
Yeah.
But she's seeing him like at every set, and even the other co-star was like, are you okay? Like, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then it goes between that, like being on set and then being at home, and it's just like you don't even know like
that
when
she's
cool. Like
I like
when
that.
she's at work, when she's not at work, like is any of this like real?
And that makes me wonder, because like you hear about that kind of stuff, right? Like I mean, at the time of recording this, like recently, I don't know if you've heard about that, Amber, but like Ruby Rose quit that Batwoman show that was on CW.
Yeah.
Now I've never watched the show. I've heard less than great things about it.
Yeah, it wasn't great from what I heard.
But like apparently she quit because it was like you're pulling like 16-hour days to film this show, and I guess she was like, I don't want to do that. This is a lot of work. It's more work than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I could do it. Screw it. And I mean, she also like almost lost the ability to walk or something doing a stunt on this show. So I mean, I don't really blame her for that. But it is interesting because like this movie sort of shows you, hey, all right, I'm going to set. I'm there for God knows how long a day. You don't even remember going home. You're just waking up to get started the next day. And I think this movie did a really good job kind of showing that sort of how that could be really detrimental to a person if you're not ready for it. And because that whole scene where she's like waking up and it's like 2 days later, she's been working and filming and she like, you can't tell, like, did she just dream that she was on set? And what part of that was a dream? What part of it wasn't? Because, like, she is seeing that creepy stalker guy, which makes me wonder what the fuck Security for Famous People is like on television series in Japan. Because, like, he's just there. There's just people there. And I'm like, I get that you can't always keep people out, but what? Like, this guy's just standing there, like, unimpeded. If he wanted to, he could just bum rush the set at any time and, like, off this girl. And no one seems to be, like, even remotely concerned about the safety of the actors, which is just really weird. But yeah, she's kind of losing. She's like seemed to be using the website to define what she did in the day, which was equally as creepy. Because she like, there's a scene I thought where she reads something on the website. It's like, I went to the store today and bought clothes, and she's just like, I guess I went to the store today, and like went on with the rest of the night. And I'm like, ooh, that'd freak me the fuck out.
And then in the next few scenes, she starts like killing people, and this is where I'm like, oh, maybe like she actually did kill like the screenwriter.
Mm-hmm. Because then isn't it like she delivers pizza or something?
Yeah, she delivers pizza
and then kills somebody.
Yeah, she kills one of maybe the producer of the TV show. Yeah, someone important that was like a part of the show. Yeah, because she's like, oh, you made me like do that.
Oh, she kills the photographer for the
no, she kills the photographer. Right. That's right.
And then she like wakes up the next day.
And she has the bag of like bloody clothes. Right. And I'm just like, oh, she did it. Like,
I know. And it's like, oh fuck, because at the same time, the television show, which you find out right after that, in the plot of the TV show they're filming, her character has a split personality, and one of them is killing people for their how is it? It was like the split personalities are sisters, and one sister is protecting the other sister by killing all the people that are doing basically this to them. And so it's like the movie's like, hey guys, like that's what's happening, right? And it's like, okay, that's fine. And that's the end, right? They do that scene where they're like, oh, it's split personality. Like, she's crazy. And it's over. And they're like, all right, let's have the wrap party now. Like, we're done filming. It's over. And that's where the creepy fucking stalker decides to make his debut to kill her, right?
Yeah, on the set where she was like, did that rape scene.
Mm-hmm. Which was like a strip club or something.
Yeah. And she is able to kill him.
That was such a good scene. I mean, like, you could take, like, the theatrical parallels aside where, like, she was raped in the show and it wasn't anything, like, everyone was fine with it, to, like, now she actually is getting raped and, like, fighting for her life. She kills this dude, which, you know, I'm clapping, like, fuck this
because she brings a hammer to his head and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, she, like, grabs a hammer
and it made this,
and, like,
sickening
shit.
sound. It's like...
I was like, oh my god, watch, he's not gonna be real in this whole thing. It's like, nope, he's fucking dead. Yeah. He's totally dead.
And then, of course, like, she sees that her manager is also dead, and she's like, oh my god, like, did I kill, like, the manager too?
Which is right after a scene where he's talking, him and the handler are talking about how she's gonna do more. She's like, because of that rape scene, they're like, oh fuck,
she's getting a lot more coverage,
and she's gonna do more acting work, but it's gonna, like, unfortunately some of it is gonna be stuff like that rape scene where it is like more mature, not like a kid thing. And he's like, some of it's gonna be a little scuzzy, but, like, you know, that's what's working or whatever. Like, that's the way to the other
lady, she like storms off.
Yeah, she gets real mad and storms off. Yeah. But then she finds, so her handler Rumi finds Mimi.
She finds her. Yeah. She's kind of like in the hallway and she's like, what's going on? Like, I told you to go get,
because she looks like shit. Because she looks like she just got raped. Yeah. Like, her clothes are all torn and she's like, what happened to you? And it's like, oh, this crazy shit happened.
Yeah. And she ends up like in a room.
Well, they ended back in the apartment, right?
Yeah, but she ends up in an apartment that looks like her apartment.
That's right.
And, you know, it's got the same, like, fish in the tank. It's got, like, the posters and everything. But
the fish aren't dead.
Yeah, the fish aren't dead. And she's
That's
like, what the hell is going on here?
Oh, God, this is so disturbing.
I know. And, like, then she looks through her closet, I think, and she finds, like... Doesn't she see, like, the same clothes that, like, she would wear?
Well, she sees her clothes, but then that's where, like, Rumi comes out wearing, like...
Yeah, but before that, she was like, this isn't my apartment.
Because
like,
the fish, right?
Yeah.
The fish are the tell. Because earlier in the movie,
gotcha.
her fish are dead.
Yeah.
And then when she wakes up in this apartment, the fish are all swimming around.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, these are supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
And then, like...
Out comes Rumi, like, wearing, like, the sham outfit.
Oh, my God. Like, that was so fucking creepy. Because, like, Rumi is this, like... larger woman, looks as like in no way, shape, or form remotely looks like Mimi. She's also like animated, kind of creepy looking. Walks out in like Mimi's clothes, like in her like weird ballerina-esque pop star outfit that's like too tight for her, doesn't quite fit, and she's like basically saying like, I'm the real Mimi because the real Mimi is a pop star.
And in the mirror you can see like it's Mimi in the sham outfit. But, like, in real life, it's actually Rumi, like, that she sees in front of her.
Right. So, like, because that's when Mimi starts tripping and, like, she sees Rumi as herself.
Yeah.
And all the reflections start to become
And as,
Rumi,
like, she's being chased by her, like, Rumi's floating, so to speak.
Oh, man. This is so...
But
it's
then,
so
like,
tough to
it
describe.
cuts to the freaking, like, mirror. Like, she's passing by a window or something, and you can see her sweating and huffing and puffing.
It's like, yeah, so...
And I was like, that's great. Like...
Well, because, like, what... So, basically, Rumi's like, I have to kill you because you're the fake me or whatever. And so, it's very clear Rumi is a wackadoodle.
And she's like, I'm Mimi, like, you know, like, the real Mimi.
And she starts chasing
was like,
her.
the stalker guy didn't do, you know, what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, she basically expositions the plot. Like, I worked with the creepy stalker guy. Basically, she thinks she's Mimi, but it's like, she pretended to be Mimi with this stalker guy to kill the real Mimi. You know, craziness aside. And she starts chasing Mimi, like, around. Like, we're jumping out of windows and shit, and, like, across rooftops and stuff. And you do get, like, it's so tough to talk about because it's all physical, like, action that's going on, but you do get that really cool scene that you mentioned, Amber, where she's, like, a real Mimi's running away from what she sees as, like, the fake ballerina one who's just hopping and gliding everywhere, and then you see that like reflection where it shows reality, and it's this like overweight woman Rumi like sweating and snarling and like fucking just sprinting after her. Like it's horrific.
And she takes an umbrella and just
Mimi takes the umbrella,
Mimi.
right? Is it?
No, it's the other
Rumi
way around.
Takes the umbrella?
No, because Rumi had the umbrella and she like stabs her, and so she gets injured like on the side. And
what the fuck kind of umbrella I don't know.
I know, that's what I was thinking too. I was like, damn, that's a sharp umbrella.
Who puts such a fine point on the end of an umbrella? I mean, like, because we have an umbrella that's like the one they use, right? It's got like the little hook handle and it's just long.
Yeah.
I can't fathom puncturing someone with that or anything with that. Like, it's too blunt on the end. You'd have to like have a truck behind it to make it work, but they do it and it's like, what the hell?
But the next part is really, I thought, was screwed up, to where like she was, you know, wrestling with her and she took like the headband or the piece, the wig.
She takes her wig.
Yeah, and she just like throws it because they slam into a window and it just shatters. And the girl like, she like freaks out because she's like, oh my god, I'm not like Mimi anymore.
Right.
And she leans over the broken short.
Oh my god, that was so fucking weird.
And you hear a like,
and she just like into her gut. It's just like it's like in her chest or something.
Yeah.
Oh. Because she's like, oh no, I'm not, I don't look like me.
And then she starts, of course, like screaming and wanders out into the road where there's like a car coming, and real Mimi saves her. Yeah. Like just like pushes her like out of the way.
Yeah, there's like a semi truck gonna hit Rumi, and Mimi runs in and just tackles her.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it like flashes, and we kind of flash forward, right? Like
to present day, and Mimi comes to this like
asylum.
Yeah, basically asylum hospital.
Yeah.
Like long-term care. And we see Rumi, and she's obviously in the nut house.
Yeah, she's pretty kooky at this point.
Yeah, real Mimi is like talking to the nurse, and she's like, yeah, she has like, two personalities. Sometimes the real one comes out, like Rumi, but then other times, you get like this false Mimi. And of course you can see that as she's looking in the mirror, and it's Mimi.
Right.
That she sees.
And I like this thing because it's like it's enough into the future from the truck thing to where it shows Mimi has like a very successful acting career, because all the orderlies and nurses are like, oh my god, and they say, and I liked this, like, to me this was such like a cool bit that they kind of led throughout the whole movie, is like Mimi or whatever was like her stage name, and then she has like her real name, which is like her actress name, and it's like a mature like actual name. It's not like, like Mimi or some nickname thing, like a cutesy nickname. And all the orderlies are saying that name, like, oh, that's so and so, like that's the actress so and so. Oh my god. And she just kind of like walks through, like everything's fine, and like she is fine. Like that weirdly, like I think she mentions, like if it wasn't for Rumi, like she would not be okay right now.
Yeah.
Which arguably you should not. And then
doesn't someone say, "Aren't you so and so?" And she's like, "I'm just an actress," or something like that.
Something to that effect. And it works. Like it's just really like I mean, this is like the thing about this one. I think over Paprika is like it has a very satisfying.
Yeah,
ending.
because she overcame like herself, and it helped that it was another person.
Yeah, we really show her actually overcoming herself physically and also mentally. It should not take what it took for that to happen, but it did.
Yeah,
but I liked it because it gave it, like, in my opinion, this movie gave a very like satisfying ending to where I didn't feel like it was either out of left field or it was just like, yeah, I wish they did this too. Like, it was like, okay, it's fine. Like there was only like so many characters in this movie and most of them died. So it's kind of like, I can't really want anything more than that.
I thought it was great. Like, I really love animated films like this where it's kind of like, it has a little bit of mystery and suspense, but then it's also kind of like fucked up. But psychologically, it's like really stimulating. Because you're going through this and you're like, you don't know what's real or what's not, because it's all from like her point of view, right? And a lot of movies are like that, where it's just like Shutter Island. You don't know like until the very end that it's him.
The spoilers for Shutter Island.
Sorry, but this is spoiler land we're in. So
yeah.
But anyways, like you have a lot of like stories like that where it's just like you don't know until like the very end, and even then, sometimes you don't know, like.
And that's what I liked about this, though, was there wasn't a point of, like, I don't know. Like, I know that Rumi is still crazy.
Yeah, and that was the nice part. You had some type of ending, and it was, like, a pretty good outcome for her.
Like, it's as good as it could be for everyone, right? Like, it wasn't like Rumi gets imprisoned for life. It's like she's getting mental health assistance. Yeah, she's getting treatment. And Mimi is a very successful actress. And not only that, but she overcame something, like, that was bothering her and all this. And there's just so much. I mean, this movie... You can play it in a way, you could take it in a way where it's like a coming of age story where she's doing this like immature, childish, you could argue childlike, pop star thing and becoming an actor in like a serious kind of way where you're not playing like a kid's character, you're playing in like an adult television series and movies and shit. And she's coming to terms with kind of changing that persona she's been living. You could also take it as like just changing careers where you were doing one thing for years and you're doing something different now, and you got to like take into account the fact that your life is changing. How do you deal with that? I mean, there's a lot that could be pulled from this movie, and I think that's what really plays to its advantage here, because it makes it enjoyable to watch, because it makes it relatable. You know, all of us have been, everybody's at that point or goes through that point where they have to, grow up, or, you have to like big life changes and you have to figure out what life is going to be like next. And this one definitely did a good job with that. It's not quite like Black Swan though. Like, I can see where it inspired Black Swan in like its theme of this person and their career. But, and I mean, it's been
which is funny that you bring that up. Yeah. So, because, well, first, what score do you think this film got on IMDb?
On IMDb, I mean, just because it's IMDb and everything seems to get this score, probably like a 7.5.
8 out of 10.
Yeah, I was close.
Yeah, and then box office, I guess we'll just do like for the world. So what do you think? Because the budget is in Japanese, like...
Oh, it's in yen?
Yeah, it's in yen.
Oh,
but
wow.
anyways, what do you think it made, like, gross worldwide?
Maybe like $15 million. I don't see this making super tons of money.
No, it actually made $563,000 at the box office.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Like, this is early enough to where I could see it. This is definitely like not being anything more than like art house kind of type stuff. Because Paprika was really the one I feel like with Kon's sort of work that broke him out into kind of the world, right? Like, people knew like Perfect Blue or Tokyo Godfathers, but they didn't know like Paprika was the one that made everybody aware.
Yeah.
Not in Japan. So that makes sense. Like, I could see it not making that much.
Yeah. And then a couple of the trivia. So the film was originally conceived as a live action, but became an anime when several backers abruptly pulled out in pre-production.
This is like Paprika.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, Paprika was going to have a live action adaptation. I guess that's different.
Yeah. And then the choreography from Mima's group Sham was not in unison. This is intentional to keep the realism of the film.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't notice that. But at the same time, I didn't think it was. I didn't like pay attention like, oh, they are so in sync. It was just kind of like they're doing things.
Yeah. And then the third one, Darren Aronofsky, so the one who did Black Swan.
Oh, okay.
He owns the American filming rights to this film, which he purchased for $59,000 to use the infamous bath scene in this film for Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, where she's screaming in the tub.
Yep.
Oh, see, I've never seen Requiem for a Dream. So
yeah, I haven't either. But I thought that was interesting that he actually owns the rights to this film.
At least in the States, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's crazy because, like, this movie, and I mean, arguably, like, the whole Black Swan thing, like, it's not the same. Like, I like this better than Black Swan. I mean, I saw Black Swan years ago, like, around when it came out. This is better than that. Not that Black Swan was bad, but this, like, Black Swan was very long for doing the coming to terms with your whole position and shit, and, like, a new person coming in, you think they're stealing your thunder. It did that for a really long time. Whereas this had a lot more layers to it that made it more endearing to watch for not as long of a time. So that. Also, like, I just liked the psychological end of this better.
So what score would you give this, Thomas?
I don't quite remember what I gave Paprika, but I think I would give this less than Paprika. So probably, like, I think I'd give it like a 7.8, 7.7, or 77, 78, whatever you want to call it. Just because, like, it was good. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a really well done movie, especially for an animated film. Like, the nice thing about this and Paprika is it's kind of like when the decision was made, like, we're going to do this as an animated movie, it was like, okay, this opens up a lot of things that we can do with an animated film that we can't do with a live action movie, and this one does it. Kind of like, you know, the Dream Mimi floating around and, like, hopping and floating. Like, I like that they, you know, as long as that trivia is true, like, when they decided this is going to be animated, not live action, it's like, okay, fine, like, she's going to float and hop around because it adds that, like, dream element. But at the same time, like, it wasn't like as good as Paprika was to me. Like, Paprika was really well done. It took that animated thing to a whole new level, and this was like, it had a cool plot. It was neat, but there were also times where I was watching it where I was getting a little frustrated, and I'm sure that was the point. But mostly just like, yeah, this is just annoying. Like, I'm getting frustrated to where I want to put it down.
Yeah.
You know, like, what's happening? Give me something to hold on to again. And I think that's the really slippery slope with thrillers like this that are psychological mostly. Also, like, Shutter Island, I think, had this issue too when I watched it, is when you start fucking around with, like, what is real and what's not.
Yeah.
And you don't give your viewers something to hold on to, whether that thing to hold on to is the actual reality or just the consistent reality, you start to be like, if none of it's real, who cares? Yeah. And you start to, like, kind of just fall out of it. And this movie had a couple points where like I appreciated I appreciated the cinematography, but when she was like waking up and like working and then waking up from a dream as if it was a dream before, that scene did go on a little long for me to where I was like, this is getting frustrating. Like, when is this going to end? When are we going to get back to reality here? Like, what is happening? Someone tell me. And it just was maybe a little too long for my taste, so I knocked some points off it. And again, I like Paprika better, so I'm not going to rate this as highly as I did that one. So, yeah, 7, 7, 7, 8. What about you?
I definitely preferred Paprika over this, so I would give it, I think, like an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Or something like that. Just because I did enjoy, like, the storyline, so I like the suspense. I like trying to figure out, like, who I guess is, like, the villain. Even though there's not really a villain to this, like,
there's just kind of a villain to this. I mean,
I guess,
Rumi's
yeah,
like
Rumi, but also it was, like, herself, like, battling, her internal
and that was
demons.
the weird, like, perfect confluence of things,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like Rumi's doing this shit at the same time Mimi's, like, freaking out. Yeah.
But I definitely liked how Paprika was a little more lighthearted, and it was just like, yeah, there was some aspect of, like, danger to it, right? Because you're getting lost in, like, people's, like, dreams and whatnot. But I think towards the end, like, it all definitely, like, concluded, and it was, like, really, like, cute almost, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'll definitely say both of these movies are, like, they're well written to the point where they have very, very satisfying endings.
Yeah.
Like, even though Paprika had a weird ending,
Yeah.
the actual resolution, like, epilogue-esque ending that you get here when, like, Mimi goes to the hospital and stuff like that, like, those, to me, I don't feel like I need to know more.
Yeah.
Like, when they're like, oh, in Paprika, when they're like, the dude and the main woman are, like, gonna get married, or they're gonna have kids, or whatever they say, and then, like, the kind of cop is able to go see films again, and this kind of stuff. Like, they round off all the characters pretty nicely. Like, everybody's, doing their thing, and they're happy, or they're just, like, fine. And this one does it well, where, like, Mimi's an accomplished actress. People know her by the name she acts under, as opposed to her stage name.
Yeah.
Which is, like, her way of knowing she made it. And at the same time, like, Rumi isn't rotting in prison. She's getting treatment. Like, it's like a happy ending, but you don't necessarily feel like a Disneyfication of it, You feel satisfied. Mm-hmm. And that's what I really liked about this, is, like, Kon has a really good way of, like, giving you a satisfying ending to a very satisfying movie, to where you feel like you're leaving the theater, getting up from your couch, like, I watched something and I'm good. I don't need more. I don't hope there's a sequel. I don't dread that there's a sequel. It's done. We're over. I'm good. And I like that. Like, I like that a lot about these movies, because a lot of movies aren't doing that. A lot of them are like, maybe we'll get a sequel, who knows? Or they're like, oh, guess what's coming up next? Or it's just like, we wanted a sequel, but we were told halfway through production we're not getting one, so here's your movie, and it ends. It's whatever. We can take it or leave it. Maybe we'll get a sequel in a few years. Maybe we'll get a spin-off TV show. Who cares? And it's just like, I don't know, stop trying to turn things into franchises. Just make your movie stop. It's fine.
Just to wrap things up, do we have any final thoughts on Perfect Blue?
This is a JoJo reference, but Perfect Blue sounds like a stan name to me.
Yeah, Perfect Blue does sound like a stan.
Like if someone was like, are you here to fight me? And they were like, yes, Perfect Blue! And then, they start fighting.
Yeah.
That's about that. Because at the same time, what was Perfect Blue?
Exactly, I was going to ask you
I don't think they said it ever. I don't even think they said the name.
I think you can allude to it, like, Perfect Blue is just this, maybe just peace.
Yeah.
So, like, at the end, she reaches, like, that...
Like, acceptance with herself?
Acceptance, yes. And that's, like, looking at the sky, and it's just, like, perfect blue. And there's not, like, there's no clouds, so maybe no clouds of confusion.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it was a movie that just kind of, like, it's not like Paprika where, like, the title characters in the movie, like, Perfect Blue just wasn't a thing. Unless it was, like, a song of theirs or something. I didn't really catch it.
I know it's based on a book, but again, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that book is about.
Oh, I bet you it makes sense in the book.
Yeah, it just sounds like a cool title.
Yeah, it was cool. We like colors and want things to be perfect.
Yeah. So with all of that being said, Thomas, what will we be covering next?
we're going to do it kind of like last time and flip it back to Amber, who hasn't seen this movie, and I have. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's The Blues Brothers from 1980. A Chicago classic, if I've ever seen it.
And for all you folks out there, don't forget to check out Spotify or wherever you get your podcast, and also leave us a comment on Instagram, Twitter, even our website. Go check that out and let us know what you think about this podcast episode.
Yeah, or our past episodes. Check out our website, swhn19.com. Also, we're starting up by the time this is released, we've already started up kind of our mini sideshow called Small Screens. There's some good stuff there, so feel free to check that out, where we're mostly watching TV shows or seasons of TV shows, and we're just kind of talking about them, or just, stuff we watch at home, and just maybe giving like a little brief talk about our opinions on that. Since, we've seen some really good movies, and it's almost a shame that we don't get to share our opinions. So, let us know what you think of those short little bits, and if you have any suggestions of things we should watch for that, let us know too. Or if you have future suggestions on things we should watch here on the main feed, we're more than happy to listen. So, give us a shout out. Let us know what you think you'd want to hear us give our first impressions on, and we might just watch it.
As always, I am your host, Amber.
And I'm Thomas.
And we'll see you on the other side.
Perfect blue!